Good evening and welcome to the Greater Albany Public School Board meeting on December 13th at 7 o'clock. I'll bring us in order. And if you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to all of our visitors. We're going to open up this morning with C, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, it's morning somewhere, but not here, I think.
Hindsight's on Cancun next week. It's thanks.
Evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. We'll move on to D, and that's our public comments, and Mr. Sexton will give a synopsis for us.
Thank you, Chair Agnagwa, members of the board. I do think it's important to make sure that people know that the board gets all the public comment in full and report back to me that they read them, which is very good. And then also that there's a full account of full length on our website, typically posted a day or two after the board meeting, but certainly available to the public. And we have 11 public comments tonight, and I'm going to summarize those probably more concisely than I have in the past, and so, but also hopefully in the writer's words. So there were 5 public comments about the superintendent search, 5 of the 11. 3 were concerns about student learning. 1 was about an ORS violation. 1 was about Takina and central configuration, and 1 was about listening sessions and superintendent search, both. The first having to do with the superintendent search, and again, I'm going to put all those that have to do with the superintendent search. The writer asks, what is it that you're looking for, and suggests that you look for someone who values and will instill a love of learning in students, and concludes with, I hope that the person chosen to lead our district is someone who thinks the best kind of day is one that teaches them something new, who looks on the world with those eyes and who models that in their work. Another public comment about the superintendent search, the person indicates, I'm concerned about the school board's change to policy Cba, which eliminates the requirement that superintendents have previous superintendent or at least district office experience. The third about the superintendent search, the writer states, the $220,000 proposed by the board in its superintendent search most closely aligns with salaries in Eugene and Bend Lapine, which both have almost twice the number of students and gaps. Comparisons with Corvallis, Philomath, Lebanon, and Sweet Home, plus the salary of former Superintendent Melissa Goff, give context for our local area. The next, around the superintendent search, the writer states, I'm concerned about the superintendent search process. The information relayed at the special board meeting from the consultant firm of McPherson and Jacobson, LLC, did not echo what I heard from the forum I attended. Given the board's recent discussion about removing the qualifications of previous experience as a superintendent, and a degree in education, I want to make it clear that these qualifications are important to myself and many other parents and community members. I hope the listening sessions were an initial trial, and if they are to continue, they will continue to change and evolve as needed.
Yeah.
And the last one, the fifth, about the superintendent search, the writer states, you have set the new superintendent salary at the high-level gold standard in order to attract the highest quality applicants, but now you are proposing to eliminate the requirement that a successful candidate will come with any superintendent or central administrative experience. That makes no sense at all. The second set of public comments are concerns about student learning, and the first person who wrote about that, there were 3, indicates, I'm saddened to learn of the disturbingly low number of students in our Greater Albany Public Schools who are passing the state's standards test, who are not passing the state standards test in English and math. And I urge the board to address this situation by enacting performance requirements for each student. The second, the person urges the board to set the enforcement standards for student performance. I do so because the recent report that the number of GAP students who are passing state standards in English and math have declined from previous years and are disturbingly low. If we want our students and our nation to succeed, then our schools must enforce performance of each student, making sure that they learn their basic skills before promoting to the next grade level. And the third and final, from concerns about student learning, the person states, I'm very concerned regarding the low and declining number of students in GAPS who are on track to graduate, and only 33% of our 11th grade students pass the state math test. Social promotion without achieving proficiency does not work. Let's have a publicized plan for 100% of our students passing the state standardized tests in reading and math in 6 years. There was one public comment about an ORS violation. The comment says, I would like to thank Chair Eric Aganagua for acknowledging that he did violate ORS public meeting law, just as the other members of the previous board have done. This is an important step toward reestablishing much-needed trust between the GAPS board and community. There was one public comment about the Takina and Central configuration. The public comment says, most agree that the sister school experiment combining Takina and Central schools has been a sad failure. The state mandate that we can no longer have single-family zoning in our residential neighborhoods will need the use of all classrooms at both Central and Takina to handle this unfortunate growth. And then a public comment about listening sessions and superintendent search, of which there was one. The writer states, I'm curious to know if each of you are accomplishing what you had hoped to achieve with the listening sessions. As a participant, what I have observed is that you most likely have not. In the 4 that I've attended so far, there haven't been enough questions or participants to necessitate any limits on questions or comments from the public. They go on to state, I participated in the community stakeholder meeting with the consultant firm and want to make sure that my comment doesn't get lost in all the other comments. This board is comprised of 3 new members who were supported by the local Republican Party apparatus, and one of the remaining board members attended an ORTL meeting, training session. The entire board needs to understand that those of us who are not Republicans are deeply troubled by this fact. That concludes the summary of public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. We move on to E and E1, Superintendent Search Final Interview Schedule, and that will be Mr. Thompson and Mr. Morse.
Yeah, we met, the committee met and took the recommendations of the board from our previous meetings, and you can see we condensed that day, made some edits. I think that was the biggest concern from the board, was it was just too long of a day. We made some edits, but we kind of still held to the concepts that the consultants had outlined for the most part. You see at the bottom, there's a notation that semifinalists dash virtual or in person. Well, I think that discussion was around McPherson Jacobson is a national firm. If there was someone flying in from far away that was part of this interview process, we might allow them to do virtual if they were a semifinalist. I think we would rather have in person, but that was kind of an acknowledgement of didn't want to be too hamstrung. Obviously, all finalists will be in person, and just a notation that we're talking January, so we have to be prepared for inclement weather that might cause us to reschedule everything.
So we ask that you all look at this. On the 16th is when we're hoping to approve it. So if there's any adjustments you want or anything you see that as a board member you think we need to do, please bring it to us so that we can, have it kind of teed up for the 16th.
This seems to me like to be a much more palatable schedule. The first one was really aggressive, and I think
Yeah.
you guys have done a really nice job of trying to pare it down and get to the essential nuggets of what needs to happen. So well done.
We're trying to follow as much as we can the consultants. I mean, that's who
Yeah.
we're paying, right?
Yeah.
So they're the experts, and so we deferred.
All right, any further questions? The action requested to be taken is a special board meeting on December 16th to provide public comment.
So I guess just clarifying question here, Mr. Chairman, Chris, Superintendent Saxon. So the public would have the opportunity to make comment between now and when we meet on the 16th, and we would come back on the 16th and review those comments and make modifications or not based on those comments. Correct?
Correct.
Yep.
I would move approval of the special meeting on the 16th. Or is that required? No?
No,
I
we just-
withdraw,
I don't think it's quite-
I withdraw my motion. I think I had support for it, though.
Action will be taken at the special board meeting on December 16th
Yes.
to provide public comment. So there's no forward action on this. Any further clarification questions on the actual itinerary?
You're trying to get me to make another motion, aren't you?
No. I just think this team of people did a really good job cleaning that up. It looks really good. Thank you for.
Well,
I know it was a team effort.
Yeah, the citizen members, watched our deliberations, so they came into it already knowing what the kind of key questions and concerns were about, and so that really helped move things along.
Perfect.
So kudos to them.
So we'll move on to E2, interview topic recommendation.
Okay, so we have a list of interview topic recommendations that are in your board book. Topics listed in no specific order: academic excellence, budget and resource management, communication, relationship skills, community involvement, equity, diversity, inclusion, handling major adversity, leadership style, learning loss recovery, long-range planning, bond, boundary change, school safety, social and emotional health, staff and student, staff supervision and management, and technology in the classroom. Just some of the obvious topics that kind of jump out for interview questions. Again, this is the same kind of thing. This is for everyone to look at it, board members and the public, make comments between now and the 16th, and on the 16th, we'd be looking for approval.
I've thought of one just related to something we're going to talk about here in a couple items down on the agenda. If we're going to change the qualifications and duties of the superintendent, I think, and it would fit in here somewhere, I'm not sure where, academic excellence, leadership style, but I would certainly, someone who no longer meets the qualifications, if we change them, I think we're going to interview, or we're going to ask that person, hey, you don't have this this background that we did ask for, explain to me how you're going to tackle that and defend yourself, because it'll be obvious. So I don't know where that fits, but I think that's going to be a question. It's going to be one of my questions.
Mr. Charaganagua, if I could.
Sure.
I'm looking at these, and I know that the hard part is the board can't make any decision in public session, or except for in public session, excuse me. And that the idea that you all would create a list of interview questions in public session doesn't make any sense, right? Because then every candidate has all the questions ahead of time, and that this would be the topics that you would use that you would expect the person to be able to answer interview questions on. There's lots of different ways to construe a question. And I'm assuming that then you would ask the consultants and/or others with some expertise in this area to put questions together for you to use when it comes to the actual interview. Is that correct?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that was happening and people understood the intent. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, so we'll move forward to E3. And that is our board meeting and listening session schedule. So it looks like we are lightening the load a little bit on the listening sessions, but we are taking on quite a bit with the superintendent hiring. I know for us, it's not as near as hard as our staff. I know a lot of our meetings can be taxing. The only thing I wanted to ask the district on this schedule is Student All-Stars is scheduled virtually. And as discussed earlier, we have an amazing football stadium, an auditorium at West. Some of these kids, this is might be the only time to get called up and recognized, and I don't want to dampen that with virtual, but if it's a recommended safety, then I would respect that decision as well.
Yeah, Chair Aganagwa, thank you. Actually, when we've talked about this with administrators across the district and said, we think we could find a way to do this in person this year, people really spoke highly of the virtual event that occurred last year and felt that it improved attendance of those who were being recognized. It gave each participant a moment, like on screen, and to be recognized in a different way, and maybe even more, this will sound weird, but sort of almost more intimately than it is when you're in a big venue. And that this seemed like one of the events that happened over the course of the year that folks thought might be better this way than in the old way. And I think that really was the intent of having it be like this, not around a safety issue per se.
Yeah, I understand. You can send it to your family group text, and grandma gets to watch your student all-star presentation. Any other questions? So the action is to move and approve the schedule as presented by staff.
I move that we accept the schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. On to E4 is our Cba qualifications and duties of the superintendent. And as you can see, the committee has taken their time and the district kind of reworked some of our suggestions. It looks exactly like we explained it out. Is there any discussion on this sheet?
I think some discussion needs to be had. There's some concern about the removal of the requirement to be an administrator. And I think some discussion around that, because I would think that if someone coming into this situation that was not in the education business is going to have more to prove, a higher bar to cross than would someone from the education side. I mean, and people are concerned that we are trying to eliminate that. And what I would say that we're really trying to do is to throw a wider, more inclusive net, because every once in a while, as brought forward by the consultants, you find someone so incredibly qualified to do the job but doesn't have the credentials that you can't help but look at them. So this is in no way trying to take away from being in the education business, but to open the door wider to other potential.
And I just looked it up as we talked about it earlier, but the candidate would have to have the ability to obtain a license. One of a few of those things to obtain a license is at least 3 years of school administration experience under administrative license. So it's not just a freebie in for anyone. The requirements there are set by the state to receive that license as well. And a master's degree in in a field of higher education. And lastly, the ability to ensure all students progress towards high levels of academic achievement and long-term success. Is there any further discussion? So the action is to approve policy CBA as presented.
Before you go there, I guess I do have a couple things I want to say. First, I've gotten some correspondence that we raised the pay scale to $220,000, and that's not, if I remember, and it certainly wasn't my intent, that be a fixed number. I think there was an up to included in that language. So that's one thing. And the other, we voted 2 weeks ago, whenever we last met, to waive a policy requiring district office experience, if you will. And
We'd be approving that right here.
I understand that, and I want to, I guess it wasn't my motion or my issue. I voted for it, but I would hate to lose somebody who was in all other areas extremely qualified, if not for that. I find most times that being in the field and involved at the ground level is really, really important. And if somebody's career path didn't include working at a district office, I don't know that that alone should exclude them. And I think we all decided that 2 weeks ago. I understand it. It's almost like there are members in the community who think we're working to a predetermined end, which I don't know. I don't know how they know that, because I don't know what it would be. And so at some point, we've got to trust the process that's been laid out. We've got to trust the community that interviews, community members that interview people, and our own judgment. I'm just hopeful that whatever the process is or isn't, it's extensive, that at the end of all of this, that we'll get the most qualified person who's the best fit for our community, and we'll be successful going forward.
Thank you, sir.
I think one of the important things is if you talk to superintendents and our own superintendent, if we had this rule as it was prior to what I hope we're going to change it to, Mr. Saxon couldn't apply for our superintendent position when he first applied to be a superintendent. Correct?
Yeah, it is true that I went from being the high school principal at McMinnville High School to being the superintendent in Sherwood in 2000.
So the way it's written now, we would take that type of person out of the candidacy. You know, that's,
I also kind of looked at the collegiate side of things and departments and deans. There's actually some language in here that would limit some of them applying for the position as well. So there's a lot of different avenues that people that are involved in education might not necessarily meet all the criteria. And so I think this motion, these changes have been a positive thing. All right. Any further discussion?
You had a motion, right?
Mm-hmm. Motion to approve policy CBA as presented.
I'll second that.
I mean, I don't think, I move that we accept policy CBA as stated.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, brings us to F, and this is your time.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a few updates on some of the things that have been top of mind and some of the things I've been up to in the last little bit. Did have the opportunity to speak to the Rotary Club of Greater Albany today at their lunch meeting, and it was actually really fun for me to go and talk about all the good things that are happening in the district. I gave them time to ask questions, really enjoyed the exchange, talked about the bond, going to school during COVID, our efforts to ensure student learning, and then also a little bit about the superintendent search. And so it's fun to go out and have a conversation or a talk where you get to show off what's good that's happening and sort of highlight that. So that was fun for me. I've also had really busy last couple of weeks with daily meetings and a number of events. I think counting last week and this week with the 3 board listening sessions, 2 school resource officer forum meetings, 1 at South, another tomorrow night at West Albany, and then 3 school board meetings. Have 8 public meetings over the course of 10 days. Some of those were 2 in 1 day, like tonight. But certainly a lot of opportunity, I hope, for to engage with the community and to have the community engage as well, which is really important. I'm pleased to report that the number of COVID cases among students and staff have steadily declined over the course of the fall. And our weekly case counts have been somewhere between 16 and 20 for over the past few weeks at least. And the number of students needing to quarantine as a result of contact at school has also plummeted with the event of the test to stay protocol and also just the fewer cases. There are some cases where we get contact out in the community and the contact tracing then causes quarantine, and we aren't in control of what happens there, but we are in control of the quarantine part that follows, and test to stay doesn't fix that. We implemented the Test to Stay program as soon as it was allowed, and we're keeping students in school instead of needing to send them home. I think a lot of other districts are still in the process of trying to implement that, and our nurse Rachel Smith and administrators in the district and school staff should be commended for their good work on moving ahead so quickly. We do still have some quarantine, but again, mostly student contacts in the community. I don't think we can keep that really from happening, but we're working at it. And I do think that sometimes we've moved quickly enough around implementation, like the new outdoor masking rules, which we, again, worked to implement immediately, that allowing our students to go maskless when they're outside, that sometimes we implement kind of so quickly we outstrip our communication, and we get some mixed bag on trying to pull that off so quickly. But we're working to ensure uniformity across the district. I also think it's really important to remember that some students and their parents still wish to keep masks on when they're outside, and that if we see students outside with their masks on, it might be intentional on the part of the student or their parents, and we want to honor those wishes. Also, when we do test to stay, if a student is in test to stay, they're basically in what the state would call a modified quarantine, and any student who's in test to stay does have to still wear their mask outside. It's not a lot of those, but it is important to know that there at least are some. We're still in the process of working on a memorandum of understanding between the district and our employee associations. I know our staff have been working really hard under really unprecedented conditions, and we met last week to discuss it. I know the board's indicated willingness to meet on short notice to take action on the agreement, and I want you all to know that the administration has also communicated a willingness to meet with the associations. In fact, we've offered to meet this week and or over the holidays whenever we don't have a specific holiday over that time, and we hope to get something set up pretty quickly. Lastly, we have 4 more days before winter break arrives, and I know it's going to be a busy week, but I'm hopeful that the 16 days between Friday, December 17th and Monday, January 3rd will allow for some great family time, recreation time, relaxation time, and a chance to recover and rejuvenate. Teachers and staff have worked really hard this fall to help students learn and recall what it's like for students to self-regulate at school and get into the shape of the hectic pace of it all. I know I had to get into shape for it, and hopefully not too much of what we've gained will be lost over break, the 17 days of break. I worry about that a tiny bit, and we can pick up where those things left off, but no doubt that a break is needed. That's kind of what I have for today for my comments. I'd be happy to answer questions or take any other questions that I didn't bring up.
Yeah.
Director Thompson.
So, discussing with the associations on an MOU, there's no in the coming weeks. There's no meeting set up. There's no.
We do not have any meetings set up currently. We have indicated a willingness to, but it gets awkward to meet with a team over the last week before winter break and winter break itself because people have made other commitments.
Sure.
And so getting all the right people together is hard. For us, it's just a couple of us, and that's easier. And so we stand ready to, but I fear it may be January before we get the next opportunity. I hope not, but I think that could be the case.
It's just we heard in the weeks before the previous meeting, we heard some heartfelt, detailed descriptions of people's jobs right now. And I remember we even said 2 weeks ago, we said, hey, we're ready to meet on short notice. And so I would just encourage, I'm not speaking necessarily to you, I'm speaking to the association and the administration. I think it is serious, and people should be organizing themselves to meet, because it kind of belies, I don't know what to say. When I hear those, I took them to heart, and I understand those messages and those detailed, and they kind of confirmed what I'd heard anecdotally from teachers. And so it's like, if it's that bad, you should be finding a way to meet if the administration is willing to bargain and if they're ready to go, there should be talks going on. I just don't understand why. I get the end of school, I get that, but then we go into break, and it does not compute with what the numerous messages we got. And that's all I would say is, like, people should be ready to sit down right now and talk.
Any further questions?
I think the director Ms. Zeska.
What I can say about the process is, with the licensed staff, the president, Lindsay, is working with her executive team, and the executive team is representing the individuals of the school.
Sure.
And so when you have those layers of communication of 600 individuals, there is an urgency, but it's also something to get correct in representing, I think, their members. Our collaborative process is still in play. It is about being collaborative, and unfortunately, there's sometimes things are moving quickly, and then sometimes things take a little bit longer. We are ready to meet. Their team needs to
hear.
be ready
That's
to
good to
meet,
hear,
and
yeah.
it's just finding that day that does work because there's other individuals involved versus that smaller team. And so I'm very hopeful that the first week of January, I believe we'll be meeting the first week of January. I know it's important to them. And then working with the Classified Association and their president, Helen Jacobs, also getting together and talking about the classified needs. There are similarities, but there is also differences, and we want to honor and recognize that. I appreciate the board's willingness to say we're ready to go when we've got this process worked, and it is taking longer than I think we all want, and I see that as we're all on the same side of not wanting it to take long. So I'll take that as a move it forward in a positive way as much as possible.
Very good.
Just as a word of caution, I know the superintendent and I have talked about this. When we are getting the day in the life of and requesting action of the board from employees, we need to be very careful. This is a word we've used a few times. It's okay to reply to those people with "thank you for your input," but you should be CCing the superintendent. But the superintendent is our voice, and it's not mistrial. It's when it would be an outside bargaining if a board member was to talk to an employee about bargaining. So we want to avoid that at all costs. But we do appreciate the informational emails that we receive.
Well, and if I might, Mr. Chairman, and just restate that I think that every member of this board is ready to meet on 24 hours' notice, whenever that is, to do our part.
We'll move on to G1, Board Liaison Reports.
I don't have any of my liaison reports. I did attend the first meeting with the new SRO, Student Resource Officer at South Albany. Low turnout. I really wish people, I think it was very beneficial. The Chief, Officer Bell were there, and they're willing to talk about what they do in detail, what he brings to the schools, how he helps, what he's there for, what he's not there for. And so I think there's another one coming up tomorrow night. And I just encourage folks who have concerns to come, or even if you don't, just learn about what it means to have an APD officer in our schools. And today at Liberty, I took my daughter for her second shot at a clinic in partnership with the schools and Samaritan. And it was just great to see people, great to see staff helping out. And that's all I got.
I visited Timber Ridge today. Got a chance to sit down and talk with the leadership a bit, and then spent a bit of time with a substitute teacher who was a classmate of mine a long time ago, and in high school. And it's just, it's really inspiring stuff to see everybody pulling together and teaching kids and running a school in some pretty challenging times. And grateful for the opportunity this morning and over lunch. And there's a lot of good things happening. In addition, Superintendent Saxon and I met last week with President Avery, LBCC. Talked about doing some things cooperatively that certainly could help kids, juniors and seniors, get on to the next chapter in their life when they're done with us. And pretty encouraging stuff there as well. And hopefully we get some good things come out of that.
I visited Memorial Middle School last Friday afternoon after an invite and making sure it worked with the superintendent. I want to thank the principal there, Ken Gilbert, for walking me around. I would say it's a challenging environment right now. The teachers and the staff are doing a fantastic job, but there are some behavioral issues, and kids we're giving them grace. But I also think it's something that we're working to change, kind of get those behavioral issues under control. One of the groups I am supposed to liaison with is the Lynn County Juvenile Department, and Tori Lynn is their director, and I talked to him, and he's seeing the same thing. It's just our students are challenged, and they've been out of school for 18 months. They've been back in school for 3.5, right? So they're finding their way back there, and we need to help them embrace what that means.
I had the opportunity also to attend the SRO town hall that we had the other day, and it was good. It was good to learn about Officer Bell, who's really going to be representing us in our schools, and to find out that he's a wrestling coach. He has experience working with kids, knows how to let kids get their aggression out positively. So it was a really good little town hall that they had. Attended the Twice Around parade with downtown and cheered our school bus drivers on as they went around, and it's no secret the bus drivers are always my favorite, and they were there and proud, and it was great to see them out there and do that. And then lastly, as we do approach Christmas or winter break, it's not the easiest time for all of our families and our communities, and as some of us are going to have a great time, some of us will have a bad time. If you are a family, a student that is in need, we're here to help. If there's housing, clothing, food, please reach out to the district office or your principal. It doesn't even have to be your school principal who you call. GAPS will be here to help. We have fantastic people that do this every day, and there's no shame whatsoever just asking for a little extra. So please, if you find yourself during this break without food every day, please ask, and we will find a way to help you. Moving on, Esperanza, it is your time, ma'am.
Hello. All right. So I have a lot, which is a good thing. I'll start off with our leadership. So we've been doing Tree of Joy based off what Chair Oganaga was saying. We adopted 35 elementary kids in our flight classes, and over 500 gifts were purchased, including 2 bikes, Amazon Kindles, and countless clothing items. So that was amazing. I was actually one of those kids when I was younger. I was one of the kids that were adopted. When I went to South Shore, and it was great to finally be able to give back. So it's just one of those what comes around goes around type situations. Our blood drive was really successful. We had a couple hiccups with that, but we pulled through, and honestly, I keep forgetting his last name, but Zaya, he's in my leadership class. He was amazing. He really oversaw the whole thing, and even though it wasn't the position that he was supposed to be in, he was put in a leader position and absolutely excelled. So we have a holiday spirit week this week that has been keeping students' morales up right before Christmas break. Today was pajama day, which was super nice not have to get ready this morning. Tomorrow will be holiday decor day. After that will be deck the palms, and Thursday will be winter gear. Friday will be ugly sweaters. We are correlating with the teachers, so we are all dressed up, which is a great moment. Some cool news with our Avid group. We have 36 Avid seniors and about $1.5 million in scholarships so far. That is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not that far into the year, and it's pretty great to have that. We do have a couple finalists for some pretty big national scholarships as well. And there are only 3 Avid classes along with 52 college acceptance letters. tomorrow and Thursday we'll be having a club rush, which is a group of students will be taking around flight classes and introducing them to each different types of clubs that are going on in the school to hopefully get more involvement. I have some more stuff. Give me 1 second. So we had a national Avid conference in New Orleans, which a bunch of our Avid national people went to, which was an amazing thing. And never mind, it wasn't in New Orleans, but it was somewhere. That was a totally different thing. It was in Dallas, Houston, Dallas. So, sorry. Ms. Ayers, Ms. Cavett, and Ms. Spencer were asked to present at this place. There it is, Dallas, Texas. We shared how the Avid system has helped South Albany change the focus from high school graduation as a finish line to opening doors to students to dream beyond graduation, creating a college and career-going culture. Using the Avid system, in 5 years, we were able to increase student achievement across multiple data points, including increasing overall graduation from 96.2 to 89%, and from 58.3 Latino graduation rate to an 89% graduation rate. In 2018 to 2019, we had the second highest Latino graduation rate in the state of Oregon, at a 91.6%. It was an honor to show how the Avid system changed the entire culture of South Albany High School. It is a place where students believe in themselves and are experiencing opportunities that they never have before. That was from Ms. Spencer. She's pretty great. So this is a ACTE Vision Conference that was in New Orleans. ACTE Association of Career and Technical Education. Ms. Malhoffs presented in a family and consumer sciences, which is a little bit of a description, was bring your teaching to life, connecting learning using activity stations. Find out how to incorporate early learning and elementary level activity stations into your teaching without sacrificing context. High school students participate in the stations, think critically about what they're doing and learning, and connect those with a written reflection. So it was a pretty great honor for Ms. Melhoff to attend this conference. And I think that is it so far. But the students are pretty excited for winter break. We're kind of, getting through the week at this point. But that's okay. I feel like everyone is.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We're going to move into our consent agenda. And it's I-1, our personnel certified administrators. Have a motion to approve I-1 certified administrator hires.
I move to approve I-1.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I-2 is our personnel classified new hires.
I move to approve item I-2, our personnel classified hires.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I-3, and it's our minutes from 10:25.
I move to approve item I-3, the minutes from the 10:25 board meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. That is going to move us into L1, our monthly bond report, with Mr. McKay and Mr. Bowman.
Chair Aganaga and members of the board, you have the end-of-month report in your packet. A brief update is that we continue to work with the contractors to see West Albany completed. Punch lists are taking longer. Mechanical corrections are taking longer. Just as a note, we still have not reached substantial completion just because of the contractual obligations that we have the contractor under. It's very important that we continue to hold the ground until the mechanical system is functioning and performing properly, because that starts your one-year warranty clock. And so we continue to work with them. Skip Hamilton is here. He's project manager of that project. And we continue to have weekly meetings and just working through those issues. And Girding is still working with us and cooperating. It's just taking longer. And it's just us dotting every I and crossing every T. Other than that, the 2021 fire alarm project, we were hoping that it would be completed. Believe it or not, I hate this excuse, but there are truly some supply chain issues that COVID are still impacting, especially with control components. And so we're just waiting on those. We're hoping in January, there's some fire dampers that we need some control points for. And so we just continue to work with them on that. And they're cooperating, but it's just something we just have to manage and just continue to stay in touch with them. Fire door project's done, flooring projects are done, and so really wrapping up the projects that are considered the bond, the capital bond. So 5.5 years now since we started the pre-bond planning, and it's been a long road, but a lot of great projects have been done. In next month's end-of-month report, I'll have a report of the projects that have been completed in every building, and I think it'll be very good for you to see how, even though we had some major projects, new construction, that we really were able to do significant projects in every single building in your district. And so I think that's really a testimony of the leadership here and making sure that we did something everywhere. With that, I just open it up to any questions you might have in regards to the end-of-month report. I'll talk about transportation singularly, but any of the bond projects.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. With the backlog and the fire suppression system components, we still have safe schools?
Yes.
We still have this fire system is
Yes.
operational? Okay.
Yes.
And then do we have an update on when we expect or anticipate being able to get substantial completion at West Albany?
Well, we had actually hoped for November
I understand.
30th. Now we're, it could be December. It actually could move into January because of some of the issues that have been uncovered.
So we're relatively close.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. I'm hoping within the next 60 days. The transportation project is continuing to make really good progress. I've reported to you that we had challenges with the pre-engineered metal building, the original subcontractor to Emmerich Construction, basically walking away from the project. We're working with the new contractor. We're getting ourselves back on schedule, and the contractor is working very hard to do the site utilities, site work, and get the project ready for footings and foundation. There's some great photos in there from the drone of the work there. And I know the transportation department's looking forward to have the new transportation facility and out of the one that they're currently in. So we continue to work hard with the contractor. Right now, with the challenges we've had, it looks like we will be slipping into October with that schedule, just because it's outside of our control because of this pre-engineered metal building. But we're working with the contractor and we're pushing as hard as we can to not get them to compromise quality, but at the same time to let them know that we need to get that facility online for the district as quickly as possible. Any questions?
I do, and I don't even know who it's for, but the bus barn project, for lack of a better term, relies on payback from state government, I think. And does the delay in the completion date have an impact on those funding streams?
I think we're going to have to get back to you on that. I do know it's a reimbursement over 25 years, but we'll have to get back to you on that. I think.
My short answer would be no. It's the cost year over year typically of operating, and so I wouldn't think that it's a full year of of cost that gets calculated on the reimbursement, so I don't see how it would have an impact.
Unless there would be the funding be predicated on a date certain that
Right.
we miss or something like that. But if that's not the case, then
Right.
great.
I'll double check and get back.
Okay.
Any further questions about end of month report? All right. Mr. McKay, Mr. Bowman, the nays and Waverly.
Yeah, thank you. So those two projects were previously presented to the board July 12th at the July 12th board meeting. And at this point, we want to bring both of those projects up. The short story of it is that both have been anticipated to go at an overall higher cost. There are some reasons why, but we did want to present both of those to the board for their review.
So I had a question about nays. When we closed Oak Grove to do construction, we moved two grades or 4 classes?
Two classroom, a single two-classroom building. In 2015, we put a two-classroom building there, a new one.
Okay.
And then Oak Grove, we had that building, that two-classroom building that we moved to there, and I believe that there's now two classroom buildings at Nays.
But we had about
Chair
100
Aganagua,
Yes,
if
sir.
I could.
Yeah.
Because I sort of heard this one a little bit ago, and so I did a little bit of work trying to find out. I
Okay.
probably could have updated that, but tried to figure out, like, okay, how did we do this if Oak was, and so apparently, in some, because some of the fifth graders from both schools actually went to North Albany Middle School, as opposed to them still being at North Albany
them out.
Elementary. And then there were some kids that went to Fir Grove?
Well, so the entire fifth grade class
Right.
wasn't the entire fifth grade class for both Oak Grove and for Nays went to North Albany Middle into their band CTE wing. So all of the fifth grade classes were in a different building. And then I was trying to think, it was Fir Grove. We still had some kiddos at Fir Grove, I think K1.
So in looking into it and in talking to a number of different people, including the principal at North Albany Elementary, in some, the number of classrooms at North Albany went up by just 2 when we did that, and we were able to farm out kids to other places, including the fifth graders who had been going to North Albany Elementary. And then since that time, we've moved a behavior program into North Albany Elementary that takes up 2 classrooms. And so that is the reason why we're tight for space there. So it seems like we took all the kids who were at Oak Grove and put them into North Albany Elementary, and there was both North Albany Elementary and all the Oak Grove kids there, but that just wasn't the case. We farmed kids out a lot of different places, and only 2 classes ended up being at North Albany Elementary. And since that time, we've taken up those 2 classrooms. So that's why the need for a portable.
We moved 4th grade into 5th grade, and then 3rd grade has been replaced by behavioral.
Correct.
Okay.
And we have no
Additional
students
fourth.
attending North Albany Middle from Nays
Right.
any longer.
Right. Hence the need.
There's no action on this item tonight. This is just for us to know.
Yes, sir.
There's one other issue here, just to, if it's all right with Chair Aganagua. The cost on this goes from 1.8 million in ESSER funds, which is what we had anticipated, to about 2.149. And so there's a gap there, and there are some resources that we have, including some bond money that we could use for that, and there are solutions at any rate. The number one issue here has to do with the difference in cost of contracted work. And so when this was initially put out, the idea was that the district would self-perform great amounts of this work. And as we look at this, in fact, to the tune of about $440,000 worth, but about 350 of it was going to be self-performed work. But as we move forward and we look at our opportunity to cover that, it would basically take all of our maintenance folks off of everything else that they're doing from now until April, and then even some beyond. We're talking about cabinet makers, concrete, plumbing, foundation, electrical, and so forth. And it would really hurt a lot of other projects that we have going on in the district and things that we need to do to just maintain the district and keep it running in a reasonable basis. And so to pull all those people off of that, all of our tradespeople off of that and put them on this project only just really is not possible at this point in time, and so it drives up the cost. And that really is the delta on this.
I did have a question for these two schools. Is this what we've seen in the past at like Lafayette and prefab, or is this a modular like we see at Clover Ridge?
The Nays modular is going to be like the modulars there. They're what we call pier set, so they're above the ground, and installed in more of a portable fashion. So if the district wanted to move those at a later date to another site, it would be easy to do. Waverly is planned to be a pit set, like the Periwinkle or Lafayette, even the Clover Ridge. Clover Ridge? Yeah. I wanted to say Cloverdale for some reason, but Clover Ridge. So it's similar to those. Those were all pit set. They're a permanent structure. They're built to the GAPS standard. So the standard that we developed at Lafayette. So they're going to be long lasting, 40, 50-year buildings plus. So I think that we're building to the new standard. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think Rob addressed this, but just to confirm, so the biggest reason is we don't have the labor pool in the district any longer to do what we thought we could do, and that just has to do with the tight restrictions right now of staffing, right?
Yeah, in truth, I don't think that's necessarily right. I think we still have the staff that we had and people and that kind of thing, but there's a lot of other work to do in the district. I just don't think that people properly anticipated what it was going to mean in order to ask us to self-perform on this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it just wasn't a reasonable expectation to start with. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to L3. And gentlemen, this is action requested by staff to move forward to award the South Shore School Project to Soderstrom Architects in the amount of $344,773.
You sure we can't do the first number?
Right? Yeah,
So I have a question just in the abstract, and I swore I wasn't going to ask this because I don't know the answer, but we're dealing with, again, pre-designed buildings, right? I mean,
Yes.
we're not designing buildings.
We're doing a factory-built buildings, but we do need an architect, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, because we have all of those connections that have to be made to the building. There's also an educational program aspect to make sure that the basic design that we give to modern building is consistent with the standard that the district is requiring for those buildings. This is the way that we did Periwinkle, we've done Lafayette. This is the way that I did Santiam Canyon, that I know you're familiar with. And so this is a abbreviated design process, but it gives us those design elements, those standards in a performance specification that then modern or a factory-built company needs to meet for those buildings. It's not as simple as Nays. It's not as simple as Waverly. And that's why we need an architect involved, just for the configuration.
So I understand the mechanical, I understand the other infrastructure things, and I guess I understand the architect fee. But I have a question. Wouldn't we have on the front end confirmed that these buildings or this product we were buying met the district's standards? I mean, I guess my question is, what are we going to do if it doesn't? And I guess there would be modifications to them, or how would that work?
Well, one of the things that Soderstrom and their subconsultants will do is put together drawings and specifications that we will give to Modern that they will then design and deliver their buildings to.
Okay. Okay, and so then I would assume that this price was, there was an RFP and this was properly advertised and
Yes,
it was a
was.
competitive bid?
Yes.
And this is the best we can do?
This is the best we can do. I will say this, that in my negotiations with Soderstrom, I was able to get their price down $125,000 from the very first proposal that they put together for us. This is well within the budget that we've established, that the board approved back, I think, in late October. This is a very good value for the work that is required to be done by the architect and their subconsultants.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So I'll entertain a motion to award the South Shore Elementary School project to Soderstrom Architects in the amount of $344,773.
So moved.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Motion passes. All right, gentlemen, you have the next one also. This is our alternative contracting method, CMGC.
Yes. A little background for you. Public bidding statutes really only recognize one procurement method for construction projects, and that's what they call design, bid, build. So you design it, you bid it, you award to the low responsive bidder, and then you build it. We have found that, especially in today's economy, that it has some pitfalls. And so the difference is the construction manager, general contractor, you bring them in, you engage them during the design process. They're able to provide us value engineering. They're able to provide us constructability so that they're looking at the way we're going to construct the project. They're able to give us inputs on ways to do it more efficiently or more economically, possibly different products that will achieve the same outcome. And so when we look at a group of projects like we have with the district this year, the modular classrooms at North Albany Elementary, Waverly, South Shore, I have Takina here. I recognize the district has not made a decision on Takina, but I want to leave it open that we could use them if you were to decide to move forward with a project, and possibly the renovations at Sunrise Elementary. That having a CMGC will afford the district economies of scale, will help with the bidding, and I really believe it's the best way to move forward, especially in today's market. Another aspect of the CMGC is this. If we were to only receive one bid for one of the aspects of the bid package, so let's say electrical, we only received one electrical bid for South Shore Elementary School. We legally can go out to the market and solicit additional bids. As long as we do it ethically, we don't disclose. And that allows us to make sure we're really getting the best value possible. And we are seeing that. I mean, Eric, you probably remember, Michael, you probably remember on some of the projects like South and West, there were some of those bid packages. We only had one bid or no bids, and we were able to go back out to the market, which was good for the district. So we're bringing the CMGC contracting method to you because what we call hard bid or low bid is the only recognized procurement process for construction projects. We must do an alternative contracting method. And that's a formal adoption of these findings of fact, and that the board takes action on to declare these projects, this class of projects, what I've described as a class of projects, to be able to use the CMGC procurement method for those projects. So this formal action of the board to accept this findings, to accept this alternative contracting method, then allows the district, enables the district to be able to use it to procure the construction for these projects. A couple things that you need to note is that there's a requirement that there was a public notice in a trade paper of statewide distribution 14 days prior to this board meeting. We did accomplish that November 19th. That was done in the Daily Journal of Commerce, really the only trade paper of statewide distribution. We have, with that notice, we've given opportunity to the public if they want to receive a copy of these findings or to make comment of these findings to be able to do that. I've received none, and I don't know if there's anyone here tonight. I typically find that no one comes to these board meetings to have an objection or to discuss the CMGC process. So we're asking you to tonight to take action to adopt these findings in the alternative contracting method for CMGC. One last point is that we drafted these, HMK drafted these, and we sent them to the district's council for construction projects, Ball Janik, to review. We find that's a really economical way for the district because we get paid a whole lot less than the attorneys get paid. So they have reviewed these, and that's the draft that you have in front of you, the reviewed by council.
So if I might, to make sure I understand, there's two ways projects can be done. One is that everything is pre-designed by us or our representatives, and that's how we usually do projects? Or is it the opposite? Is it designed, bid from the beginning by the electrician, by the HVAC?
If I could use the bond as how we have.
Sure.
The bond, the only project that major project that we did hard bid was Meadow Ridge. The rest were CMGC. The CFU projects were, because they were single scopes of work to a single trade contractor, like an electrical contractor for a fire alarm or a roofing contractor for a roof. Those were all done hard bid. And so what we've done throughout this bond is try to match the right delivery method with the type of project. So those single scope projects, those critical facility upgrade projects were done hard bid. The major complicated projects with multiple trades were done CMGC.
And by hard bid, you mean we've got the plans, we've got the design, and they're building what we have, what we're requiring. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would describe it as that we hire a designer to design the project, and then we put that set of specs out and plans to bid, and then we award to the low responsive bidder. The CMGC, we still design it fully,
Okay.
but the CMGC bids the project.
And so I want to just make sure we're not getting ourselves in a situation where we don't have enough electrical outlets in a classroom.
No.
Because there was a motivation by a contractor or provider to do it as financially efficient as possible, and we cut corners in the way of what the end product was.
No, what I think you're describing is design build, where you put together a performance specification or just a basic what you want, and then you have the contractor basically design it and build it. We're not doing that. So,
Okay. Thank you.
I just, during the bond project, I've really, one thing, I think the best argument for this is the value engineering phrase. It's a way to to save money before it even gets to the board, and that's a lot better than them coming back with change orders. We don't want that. We don't like those. So I mean, I think this has been a great experience during the bond, this kind of a process.
You and I remember that very differently. It's always the architect shooting for the stars, and then the value engineering comes in and has to clean everything up. And I value.
Yeah, that's what I agree. Yeah, maybe clean it up. Yeah.
Yeah. CMGC is a little more expensive, but I have watched many of our projects be more successful, being on time and actually under budget and before deadline on a lot of our CMGC projects. Any other questions?
So is this an action item before us tonight?
The action requested by staff is to move to approve findings and fact and adopt the resolutions included in the attached proposal finding, fact, and resolution.
So moved.
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Next brings us to our budget committee calendar. Give you a second to review it. There is a action on the table to move and approve the calendar and budget committee application as presented.
Could
So-
I ask, real
Go
quick,
ahead.
who are the two members? It says there are two budget committee openings. Did we have an opening, and then, who left us? That's my question. Who's no longer on the, does anybody know?
They've been gone for quite a while, like a long time.
There's been okay.
Yeah, there's been an
Okay,
opening for
okay.
almost a year, I believe.
So
And it was just moving out of the area.
Oh, okay.
I would have to ask Chris
Yeah.
Green if.
We can
has
find out
those,
later.
but yeah,
Just
okay,
curious.
thanks.
Just
Do we have a
curious.
list who's on the committee now? I haven't seen such a list yet.
It's on the district site, but I'm sure staff would be happy to get it to you.
Get this later. I was just curious.
So I would just say the calendar, as I initially looked at it, it seemed like it was going over a long period of time compared to what I'm used to, but I also didn't consider in the fact that we would be doing this in the evening with a volunteer group, and so I understand this. So the schedule looks okay. I would say that the process that's been laid out to appoint budget committee members seems a bit, I guess I would describe it as awkward, and that we could have 10 or 12 applicants, although it's a budget committee, probably not that, but whatever we have, they come to a public meeting and we do a public interview of all the candidates, and then we deliberate and make a decision. This is a volunteer position, and we're lucky to have people that are willing to serve on these boards. If we could do it more efficiently and not put applicants through a public interview process, if you will, I would suggest maybe a subcommittee to go through the resumes, and if interviews need to happen, that subcommittee could then do that and ultimately come with recommendations to the full board, and the full board would either concur with those, or we would not, and we would go from there. So intuitively for me, that feels like a little bit better process.
I agree, as someone who went through a process before I became on the board with the school district's budget committee. But I also spent 12 years on the city's budget committee. So I have some thoughts about, people don't understand what it means. And so I think what Director Nyquist laid out is a good process for us, for this board to appoint someone.
So
See, I wouldn't mind writing something up and bringing it to the next board meeting and having you gentlemen take a look at it. Because our first meeting's not till March.
Oh,
I can just write up kind of an interview process recommendation.
So I think, though, that the applications have a hard close date for Budget Committee?
Chair Ogenog, what they do at this point in time have kind of a hard date, and part of it is that there needs to be some work done to bring, so it closes by January 14th, the applications. And then part of it is that then we would need to have room to do the interview part and then have the board vote to seat the 2 members. So there's a couple meetings out there that has us getting into the second board meeting in January as it currently exists.
I think we're all going to be sitting here again Thursday night
That's true too.
this week.
Yeah, I think there's a January where there's kind of an overview of the budget as we see it, appearing, and there's kind of a January meeting of the budget committee that I think that's what that moves the whole timeline up, and then we don't really get into it until the spring.
Just as a point of information, on the district website, there is a whole section for Budget Committee that goes back, several years. Chris Norman has served as the Budget Committee Chair, and other members are Heather Carmichael, Seth Christensen, Ben Watts, and Jake Gabel. Those were last year's Budget Committee members that were the community. The other half was the board and then staff.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think that's 4, right? You gave us 4 names there?
So one of those must have
Term
stepped
expired?
away, yes.
Okay.
Looking at the calendar itself, Mr. Yoder is going to have a lot of work in front of him this year, explaining a budget to a lot of new guys, and I would propose moving the start time from 7 to either 5:30 or 6. At 7 o'clock, we're already starting kind of late, and I would just like to be able to appreciate everyone's time and have a very good understanding of our budget. I think the district, we owe it to the district to have a good understanding. So my recommendation to the board would be moving the start time to 5:30 for the budget meetings.
I guess my question is, do we have an obligation to check in with the current board budget committee members and make sure that works for them? Is that a change from what we did in the past?
It starts at 7.
Should talk to them.
That's everybody, yeah.
So can we reach out to them before we make a?
Yeah, so if staff wouldn't mind bringing it back Thursday night for us and
All right,
reaching out to those Chris and let us know how they feel.
thank you.
Any further discussion on the calendar or committee members application? All right.
So I think what we're agreeing on is the dates. The time is in question. And then I would reiterate is that, are we in agreement that there be a subcommittee, if you will, or there's a set other than what is on the table as it's presented? And we can firm that up Thursday then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So table it for now. Okay.
And a lot of people don't know, we have a very hardworking, a lot of time spent on our board policy committee. Director Morris, would you mind taking this one for me on M2?
Sure. So there's a couple board policies that are being brought before the board for changes. The first one is BDDC. It is the board meeting agenda. The proposed change is it will read the follow. The board chair or vice chair, with the assistance of the superintendent, will prepare an agenda for all regular meetings of the board. The previous way this was worded was the following. The superintendent, with the assistance of the board chair, will prepare an agenda for all regular meetings of the board. Basically, we're just changing it so the board members themselves control the board agenda.
Thank you. And doesn't look like there's an action, so this will come back at our next regular scheduled meeting. And then one more policy, BG, Board Staff Communications.
I'm happy to do it. So
Yeah.
this basically has a couple of changes. One of them is around board communications to staff, and the change allows that all official communications will be submitted through the superintendent with the exception of basic board meeting business that would involve the board secretary. So that is a change. And then visits to schools by board members, this would be a change that says visit by board members to any district school require 4 business days advance notice to the superintendent. In this advance notice, the board chair must share with the superintendent the reason for the school visit as well as the school date and time. Board members can visit their children's schools in the role as a parent or visit activity sports that invite the general public. The entire board will be informed of school visits or other board members if the visit was in the role as a board member. And the last section says of new is board members have no individual authority to direct, suggest, or make decisions at the school being visited.
Any comments? Perfect. Well, thank you for the hard work to that committee. I appreciate it, and we'll see that again at our next regularly scheduled board meeting. I don't see any future agenda items. Is there any other business from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 8:22.
Aye.